Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On the agenda tonight, we have Toto, and this is going to be coming from 2002, and they're going to be playing through their version of the George Harrison classic, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. So let's get the guys up on screen and see how they get on.
Well, my guitar gently weeps. I look at the floor and I know it needs sweeping. Still, my guitar gently weeps. I don't know.
I'm just going to jump in here before this main solo section because so far what a great version of the track this is, and there have been so many great covers of this particular track. It really does show what an amazing composition in the first place George Harrison actually came up with, and especially with lead guitar solos, because there seem to be so many great lead guitar solos over the top of this track as a basis that you think that it's just an inspiring track, because you might see a guitarist who might just play middle of the road solos sometimes on their own stuff, but then give them While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and just the way that the progression moves and just the emotion of the track. Sometimes a guitarist can just absolutely melt your face with a solo over this track, and that's pretty much what we've got here with Steve. And Toto, just as a band, having that 80s sound, and when I say 80s sound, they were so based in melody that they were able to cross over into that mainstream mainstream, to the point where even now you'd find Toto tracks in constant rotation on the radio, especially here in the UK, because of that melodic content. It could cross over, if you wanted it to, into pop, because it is so melodic, but then also it had those elements of classic rock, and especially with some of the guitar solos that are so melodic but did have a little bit of distortion on there. So you had that edge of rock within these tracks, as well as being highly melodic and pop rock kind of crossing that borderline. So the way that they played and arranged music, and still do, just make it so accessible. It's because of that technical ability that you've got throughout the whole band as well. Because if you are a guitarist, for example, like myself, Steve, just listening to some of his lead playing and his ability in general, and listening to any Toto track and listening out to those solos, you can hear the amount of technique in there that is paired with melody. So as a guitar player and someone who wants to improve their playing, listening to Toto, you would absolutely try and get these solos down because of the technical ability that's within these solos, but also the expression that's put in there as well. And even though we've got a different arrangement here in terms of being a lot busier with percussion, in fact the original track didn't have any percussion in, having that element in there doesn't detract from that original composition in terms of keeping the same feel, and that is something that I want to draw your attention to in the guitar solo as well, because Steve is an absolute master at playing with feel, and especially keeping it relevant to the track that he's playing. I'm talking about playing a guitar solo in context. So it means that it fits the rest of the track, and of course the solo that Steve does here so far has absolutely fitted in there, and the way that he achieves that is great control with the vibrato. This is one of those tracks and one of those solos that is so important to have control of vibrato to get the guitar to sing. You can use this whole video and Steve's playing just as a workshop to see exactly how, in my opinion, you should mix in technique with feel and vibrato and those different stylizations that you want to throw in to put across that emotion and that expression. Steve is a master of doing this. And let's not forget to mention Steve's voice here as well, because he's got that really solid vocal, but also we've got quite a wet mic sound here in terms of the effect on there. We've got a really cool delay going on, which just adds to that atmosphere. There's lots of space in that vocal, which really suits the track well. And guitar wise, he's got a great guitar tone here. Again, quite a lot of distortion in there, but it's not with that trebly edge. It's very much, you can imagine turning down the tone to about 5 here just to get that really soft, cool, smooth tone rather than being too aggressive. And when I say about using this video as a potential workshop, if you do play guitar, to watch how Steve plays and puts his solos together, it's because Steve mixes techniques together so well for the overall effect of the solo that he's playing in terms of crescendo and taking you on a journey and playing expressively. And some of the things that a lot of players do fall down on is working on their technique to a level where they can play really fast, alternate picking, sweep picking, all of these techniques where you can follow a lot of notes quickly, whether it be hammer-ons and pull-offs as well, and they tend to lean on those techniques all the time. Speed is to be used to complement the rest of your playing and to make an emotional statement within a solo, and that's something that Steve does amazingly well, because he will play slowly, he'll play with great vibrato, and then he'll just dash in a little bit of alternate picking, just a few runs that might only last 1 or 2 seconds, and they are going to be fast runs, but then he'll get back into the melody. So it's giving you that light and shade, not only musically, but technique wise as well. What you'll find that once you start mixing these techniques together, it really makes your guitar playing so much more expressive, but also gives you so much light and shade that that people's brains can't predict where you're going, and that's the point, to keep it interesting. And in order to make a musical journey interesting and a guitar solo interesting, it's exactly the same as real life. If you're going on a journey and you don't know where you're going, it's going to be a lot more interesting because it's exciting. Whereas if you listen to somebody playing guitar and they're just playing fast the whole time, you can already plan out where you're going because you've already heard it. Whereas if somebody's playing slowly, throwing in a bit of vibrato, dashing in a little bit of speed, doing bends and tapping in, all these are unpredictable moves, so you don't know what's coming next. It's just mixing up all of those techniques, all of those emotions, so that the journey, the whole listening journey, is interesting. But of course, in order to achieve these effects, you need to have mastery of those techniques in the first place, which means that expression, the control of vibrato, practicing your runs, hammer-ons, pull-offs, alternate picking, if you want to get a more aggressive sound. Let's get into this second solo. And there we have it. Pretty much everything in that solo is what you want to hear, or at least what you imagine the solo sounding like. He just absolutely takes it everywhere you want him to go. And of course, I love the vibrato. The way that Steve just has that wide vibrato on bends is so cool. Looking at the solo, taking a step back and analyzing it from a constructive point of view in terms of how he's composed the solo. Obviously, this is the kind of solo where Steve is just going on the feel of it, and you can tell that. I always say about the top players that they push their playing to that edge, but then never fall off the edge of the cliff. It's always just balancing there, and that's where some great stuff happens, like just happened there. And again, listen to the way that the solo pushes and pulls, the way that he starts off slow, melodic, control, interrupts it with a fast run, back to slow, melodic control playing, interrupts it with another fast run, and as he starts to open the taps on his playing and get wider with the vibrato, gets even more expressive, he starts to now put in even more speed, because it is like climbing a mountain. You're getting up to that crescendo, just climbing to that peak. And that's what you want to have right at the top, is that ultimate bend with vibrato right at the top of the mountain. And he absolutely takes you on that journey and then rolls off the volume right at the end, almost kind of maybe down to 5 or 4, just totally rolling off all of that gain. And the piece de resistance at the end, we have the feedback controlled with the whammy bar. It's exactly how every guitarist wants to finish a solo, is with a gradual bleed in of feedback and having that control there as well. And right at the end, first time that I ever saw this video, I wanted to hear right at the end of the solo a tone dip on the whammy bar. And when I was thinking of it, it's exactly what Steve did. And it's uncanny that everything you want to hear is in this solo. All the greatest players make you think when they're playing. Not only emotionally, they get you to feel something, but they ask questions all the time. And at the end of the track, Steve really cleverly asks a question by dipping on that whammy bar. He could have just faded out, just rolled off the volume, and that would have been fine. But just that little dip just puts a question mark at the end. It's so clever, and it just makes it so interesting musically to listen to. And I know that I've been approaching this very much from that guitarist perspective because it's so well put together. And also, I have done quite a few videos on this track being covered in particular by different guitarists. Some of those players, like Prince, for example, on the George Harrison Hall of Fame induction, you can't deny the solo that he played that night. But for me, it was a little bit borderline because it was a night for George Harrison, and Prince really did steal the show, or tried to steal the show. Whether it's the right night to do that or not, I'm not so sure, but you can't deny, as I said, the playing ability that Prince showed on that night. We had Gary Moore's version of it as well when he played live with George at the Royal Albert Hall, and that video is on my channel somewhere because I had a look at that, so you can check out Gary's take on the solo. Obviously Eric Clapton, who played the original, and I think a few people don't realise that Eric Clapton played the original lead guitar on the original track. So you've got that classic rendition, of course. Also Jeff Healey, he's on this channel. He did his own cover of it. Like I said, so many top guitarists really do connect with this track. It's just something to do with it. Obviously, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, the title is obviously going to appeal to guitarists, but it's so much more than that. If the play is good enough, it can really connect on so many levels, and that's why it's great to check out these covers, especially when these top guitarists are doing them. But thank you so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one.